Hey everyone, Mr. MC here. This is a guide for round 3 of the 2022-2023 Manufacturers Cup exhibition season taking place at Autopolis with the Group 3 cars. So let's take a quick look at the race details. 16 lap race with a rolling start. Fuel's at ×2, so fuel's not an issue. Tire is at ×5 and tire is pretty nasty here at Autopolis. You have to use both the racing hard and racing medium tires so you don't get a 1-minute penalty after the race ends. We have a 5-minute qualifier, and during the qualifier, fuel is off, but the tire wear multiplier is still at ×5. So let's go ahead and get started with the lap guide. So when you're starting the lap, you want to bring yourself towards the left side of the track, shifting halfway if you're in the Suzuki VGT Group 3. And you're braking just before the 100-meter board, so braking as much as you can. And as I mentioned in the round 1 video, you have to play around with the gears a lot in the Suzuki VGT to force your car to rotate around these turns and exit on a higher gear. Then you're braking when you pass the path that is on the left. Again, doing lots of playing around with the gearing and throttle control for these next couple of turns, using a little bit of braking if necessary. Brake before the curb on the right ends, just trying to bring yourself as close as you can to the inside of the turn, unless if you're in this super understeery car. Again, playing around with the gears a lot to force the car to turn. A little bit of braking for this long winding left turn, just trying to get a good exit, get on the throttle as soon as you can. Brake just before the penultimate sign that is on the right, so before the 50-meter board. Just trying to get the car to quickly rotate around this really sharp hairpin, get it up to third gear in the VGT and get on the throttle as soon as you can. Then bring yourself towards the left, brake as close as you can to the 50-meter board, so actually a little bit before the 50-meter board, trying to maximize your momentum, doing a little bit of braking to adjust your speed, but for the most part you want to do a lot of throttle control, especially through the last couple of turns. Braking a little bit for these double right-hander turns, more throttle control, go up to 4th gear. A little bit of braking if you need to adjust your entry speed. A little bit more braking to try to set yourself up for the final turn where you go flat out until you cross the start finish line. So let's go ahead and this car doesn't like to turn, but let's go on over to the race strategies, where, as I mentioned earlier, 16 lap race. Fuel is a ×2, so fuel is not an issue, but the tire is a ×5 on the racing medium and hard tires. So make sure you use both tire compounds so you don't get a 1-minute penalty after the race ends. And to put it simply, this race is going to be a one-stop race where you try to use the racing medium tires for as long as you can and try to minimize your time under racing hard tires. So if you're starting towards the very front, you can start under racing medium tires and try to get away from everyone else. But if you're starting closer towards the middle or the back of the pack, start under racing hard tires to get the slower tire compound out of the way. You'll use up a bit of fuel along the way. That way, when you start your racing medium stint, you have a bit less fuel, which means your car's lighter. You can go a little bit faster, your tires last a little bit longer, and if you play your cards right and do some good old tire management, so not scrubbing off the wheels too much, especially the front wheels, it's possible to even do an undercut and potentially gain a couple spots by pitting just a little bit earlier. But if you do try to go for the undercut, you will need to take really good care of those racing medium tires, because tire wear here at Autopolis is a royal pain in the butt. And at least for me, it's the front tires that wear out a lot faster in the Suzuki VGT, and you're going to get a lot of understeer once the tire wear really starts to kick in. And the dirty air, so whenever you're behind someone going through the turns, the dirty air will make you understeer even more, and it's going to increase the tire wear. So it's going to be pretty difficult to try to get some passes done while you're trying to make your tires last. In terms of how long the racing medium tires last, It's going to depend on the car that you're using and how you're driving. For me, I was able to make the racing medium tires last 8 laps, and this was me starting on the racing medium tires. And again, once the tower kicks in, it becomes pretty miserable, as your car is going to understeer a lot. At least for me, the car is understeering a lot because the front tires are wearing out faster. So you do have to be careful about how you're driving your car. Don't be way too harsh on those front tires if that's your case as well. Otherwise, you're not going to have a good time towards the end of your stint. So the main goal is to try to get at least 8 laps out of the racing medium tires. And again, the difficulty of pulling this off will depend on your driving style and the car that you're using. But anyways, we're going over to the pit stop. Please do be careful about entering the pit stop, as there's a chicane just before the pit entry. But your pit loss, which is going to be just a tire change, is going to be around 21 seconds. No need to refuel, as fuel is not an issue for this race at all. So you're just doing a tire change, changing over to the tires that you haven't used yet, and off you go to complete the second half of the race. Do be aware that even on the racing hard tires, tire wear is a pain in the butt, because again, this is a topless, so the third sector is especially harsh on the tires, and the ×5 tire wear doesn't really help the cause at all. So you do have to be a little careful about how you're driving the car towards the end of the stint, because tire wear is not the most pleasant thing. You can see me that I'm starting to understeer a bit in this understeer car because of the tire wear in the car itself. So I'm having a bit of a hard time just trying to make it through the final sector, as this is where the car is really weak at. But at the end of this race, I was able to get a 28 minutes and 41 second run. So a bit of a longer run, but there we go. 28 minutes and 41 seconds, and this was me starting on the racing medium tires and then switching over to the racing hard tires halfway into the race. So what I want to do now is take a look at my other run. So in this run, which you'll see in a moment, I start on the racing hard tires this time and then switch over to the racing medium tires halfway into the race. And the reason why I want to take a look at this is because you do use up some fuel, which can open up the possibility of doing 7 laps on the hard tires and 9 laps on the medium tires instead of doing an 8-8 split. But the thing is that if you do decide to go for the 7-9 strategy, starting on the hard tires of course, you do have to take good care of those racing medium tires, because you're using them for a longer time. And yes, even though the car is a bit lighter, Autopolis still really bad on the tires. ×4 tire wear doesn't help the cause at all. So you still have to worry about the tire wear. And if you drive way too harshly, and at least in my case, if you're being really aggressive with your steering, doing lots of steering lock, then the front tires are not going to make it towards the end of the race, at least in my scenario. But in this run, I was also doing an 8-8 split, because I just wanted to get an idea about what it looks like going from hards into mediums. The tire wear on the hard tires is still a royal pain in the butt, so do be careful about that. But there you go. So let's go ahead and skip on over towards the end of the race. So this is going to be at the end of lap 16 to take a look at how the racing medium tires are looking like. And here's the thing, because I was driving a bit harshly, especially with the front tires, so I don't think I would make it if I did 7 hards, 9 mediums. But if your car is good on the tires, and if you are good on tire management, then it's possible to go for the undercut strategy of 7 laps on the hard tires and 9 laps on the medium tires. But again, that's not going to be the easiest thing to do, because tire wear is not going to be kind to a lot of us, and you have to really pay attention about how you're driving the car and doing whatever you can to make sure that you don't wear out those tires too fast, whether it's the front tires like in my scenario or the rear tires for other cars. In this run, it was a bit slower. I actually went off the track at one point, so This one was about a 28 minutes and 43, around 42, 43, so similar run as to starting on the medium tires. That and now is pretty much fed up with this track. But anyways, so to summarize this, you're only going for a one stop because a two stop, you lose too much time with that, so do a one stop. And you have to be careful about how you're driving the car to make sure that your tires last as long as they can. The goal is to try to do at least 8 laps on the racing medium tires. That way you do 8 laps on the racing hard tires. But if you're starting on the racing hard tires, it is possible to do 7 laps on the hard tires and then 9 laps on the medium tires. But if you do go for that strategy, you have to be really careful about how you're driving the car to make sure that your tires last all the way to the end of the race. Because if you're doing the 7-9 strategy and you drive the car way too harsh, you get stuck in dirty air, your medium tires might not make it to the end of the race, so you do have to be careful about that. But anyways, that's going to be all for this video. Hopefully this guide helps you out a bit, but that's going to be it for me. So do take care. Thank you for the support, and thanks to the channel members for supporting the channel as well. This is Mr. MCA, and I'll see you in the next video.